For more than 4,000 years, the Great Sphinx of Giza has watched the sun rise in complete silence. Half lion, half human, carved directly from a massive limestone outcrop, it has survived dynasties, invasions, earthquakes, and the relentless passage of time. Millions of visitors stand before it every year. Yet one question has never stopped fueling debate. Who really built the Sphinx? Most historians believe they already know the answer. Others insist the monument is far older than anyone imagines. And now, that centuries-old mystery has entered a completely new era. Not because archaeologists uncovered a hidden chamber, but because someone asked an artificial intelligence to examine the evidence from a fresh perspective. Imagine giving an AI access to decades of archaeological reports, geological studies, satellite imagery, laser scans, climate records, historical documents, and scholarly debates, then asking it one simple question: who built the Sphinx? Instead of accepting the most common explanation without question, the AI compared competing theories, weighed the available evidence, identified areas of agreement and disagreement, and produced a reasoned assessment. The result wasn't a magical revelation or a forgotten name hidden in the desert. Instead, it highlighted just how much remains uncertain about one of humanity's greatest monuments. And that conclusion surprised many people expecting a simple answer. Before going any further, it's important to separate fact from internet rumors. Despite countless headlines claiming that Grok AI proved a hidden civilization built the Sphinx, there is no verified scientific study showing that Grok, or any other AI, has officially solved the mystery. Large language models like Grok generate answers by analyzing existing information rather than uncovering brand new archaeological evidence. They can compare research, summarize competing arguments, and identify patterns in published data. But they cannot excavate ancient sites or replace field archaeology. That distinction is crucial because the real story is fascinating enough without exaggeration. The mainstream archaeological view has remained remarkably consistent for decades. Most Egyptologists attribute the Sphinx to Pharaoh Khafre, who ruled during Egypt's 4th dynasty around 2500 BC. The monument sits within the Giza pyramid complex, close to Khafre's pyramid and temples, leading many experts to conclude it was created as part of his royal construction program. Architectural similarities, nearby statues, and the surrounding layout all support this interpretation. While no inscription explicitly states, Khafre built the Sphinx, many researchers argue that the overall archaeological context makes him the strongest candidate. Yet this is where the mystery refuses to disappear. Unlike many ancient Egyptian monuments, the Sphinx bears no surviving inscription identifying its builder or recording the exact date of its construction. That absence has left room for questions that continue to divide researchers. Some geologists point to unusual erosion patterns on the monument enclosure, suggesting they may have formed under climatic conditions very different from today's desert. Others argue those features could be explained by natural weathering processes acting over thousands of years. The debate has lasted for decades because both sides rely on different interpretations of the available evidence rather than a single decisive discovery. This is precisely the kind of complex problem where artificial intelligence becomes interesting. Not because it possesses secret knowledge, but because it can rapidly compare enormous amounts of published research without favoring one author's reputation over another. When Grok was asked who built the Sphinx, its response reportedly reflected the balance of existing evidence. It acknowledged that the strongest archaeological case still points toward Khafre and Egypt's Old Kingdom. At the same time, it recognized that certain geological observations continue to fuel legitimate academic debate. Rather than declaring a revolutionary answer, the AI essentially mirrored what careful scholars have been saying for years. The leading explanation is well supported, but unanswered questions remain. And those unanswered questions are exactly what make the Sphinx one of the greatest archaeological mysteries ever studied. If the accepted timeline is correct, then the monument stands as an extraordinary achievement of ancient Egyptian engineering. But if even part of the alternative interpretations prove accurate, historians may eventually need to rethink aspects of early civilization itself. That possibility has kept researchers, geologists, historians, and now even artificial intelligence returning to the same silent guardian in the desert. In the next part, we'll examine the strongest evidence supporting the traditional view that Pharaoh Khafre commissioned the Great Sphinx, and why most professional Egyptologists remain convinced that this explanation is still the most credible. To understand why most archaeologists believe Pharaoh Khafre built the Great Sphinx, we have to step back nearly 4,500 years to the height of Egypt's Old Kingdom. This was an age when massive pyramids rose in the desert, royal temples stretched across the Giza Plateau, and thousands of skilled workers transformed limestone into monuments designed to last forever. It was one of the greatest building projects in human history. Within this extraordinary landscape stands a sphinx, positioned so precisely that many researchers believe it was never intended to stand alone. Instead, it appears to be an integral part of Khafre's entire pyramid complex. One of the strongest pieces of evidence is geography itself. The Sphinx sits directly beside Khafre's Valley Temple and the causeway leading to his pyramid. These structures were planned together with remarkable precision, forming a unified architectural layout. Archaeologists argue that it would be highly unusual for such a massive monument to belong to a different ruler, while occupying the center of another king's ceremonial complex. In ancient Egypt, royal monuments were carefully organized to reinforce a pharaoh's authority, making the Sphinx's location a significant clue rather than a coincidence. Construction techniques also support this conclusion. Studies of the limestone layers show that the stone removed while carving the Sphinx was likely reused to build nearby temples associated with Khafre's complex. Instead of transporting enormous blocks from distant quarries, ancient builders appear to carve the Sphinx directly from a natural limestone ridge, then recycle the extracted stone into surrounding structures. This efficient approach fits remarkably well with what archaeologists know about Egyptian engineering during the Fourth Dynasty. The Sphinx itself may also preserve clues about royal symbolism. Its body is unmistakably that of a lion, an animal long associated with strength, protection, and kingship in ancient Egyptian culture. The human face, though heavily weathered, wears a traditional royal headdress known as anemes, a garment commonly shown on pharaohs. Some scholars believe the facial features resemble statues of Khafre found nearby, although this remains a matter of interpretation, because centuries of erosion have softened many details. Modern facial comparisons have produced mixed results, meaning the resemblance is suggestive rather than conclusive. Interestingly, there is no surviving inscription from Khafre that explicitly claims he ordered the Sphinx's construction. At first glance, that might seem surprising, but Egyptologists point out that many monuments from the Old Kingdom also lack direct construction records. Time has destroyed countless inscriptions, while others may never have existed in the first place. Ancient Egypt often relied on context rather than written labels. As a result, archaeologists frequently identify monuments by combining architectural layout, surrounding artifacts, construction methods, and historical chronology rather than depending on a single written statement. Centuries after Khafre's reign, another fascinating piece of evidence appeared. Between the Sphinx's massive paws stands a famous dream stele erected by Pharaoh Thutmose for around 1400 BCE. According to an inscription, the young prince fell asleep beside the Sphinx, dreamed that the monument promised him kingship if he cleared away the sand bearing its body, and later fulfilled that promise after becoming pharaoh. While the stele celebrates the Sphinx as a sacred monument, it never clearly identifies who originally built it. By Thutmose's time, the Sphinx was already ancient, meaning even later Egyptians viewed it as a relic from a distant past rather than a recently constructed statue. This is exactly where artificial intelligence reaches the same conclusion as many historians. When AI systems compare archaeological maps, excavation reports, historical records, and architectural relationships, the evidence consistently places the Sphinx within Khafre's building program. It is the explanation supported by the greatest number of physical observations currently available. But AI also recognizes something equally important. Supporting evidence is not the same as absolute proof. Without a surviving inscription naming the builder, there will always be room for new discoveries that could refine or even challenge the accepted narrative, and that's why the debate refuses to end. While archaeologists focus on the monument's archaeological context, another group of researchers has spent decades studying something entirely different. Not the temples or the statues, but the stone itself. They argue that the surface of the Sphinx tells a story that may stretch much further back in time than the age of Khafre. In the next part, we'll We'll explore the controversial geological evidence that sparked one of archaeology's biggest debates and discover why some researchers believe the Great Sphinx could be thousands of years older than conventional history suggests. For decades, the discussion surrounding the Great Sphinx seemed settled. Most archaeologists accepted that it was carved during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BC. Then, a different group of researchers began asking a completely different question. Instead of studying inscriptions or royal history, they examined the limestone itself. Their argument was simple. If stone records the effects of an environment, then perhaps the Sphinx's surface could reveal clues about its true age. The debate gained international attention in the early 1990s when geologist Dr. Robert Schoch carefully examined the weathering patterns on the Sphinx and the walls surrounding its enclosure. He noticed deep vertical channels and rounded erosion marks that, in his opinion, looked more consistent with long-term rainfall than with wind-driven desert sand. According to Schoch, these features appeared different from the erosion normally expected in Egypt's dry climate. Since significant rainfall was far more common in North Africa thousands of years before the Old Kingdom, he proposed that parts of the monument might have been exposed much earlier than traditionally believed. This idea immediately sparked one of the most controversial debates in modern archaeology. Supporters argued that if sustained rainfall truly created those erosion patterns, then at least the original carving of the Sphinx might predate Khafre by several thousand years. Some suggested that the monument could date back to the end of the last ice age, when the Sahara was much greener and wetter than it is today. If true, such a discovery would dramatically reshape our understanding of early civilization. However, many Egyptologists and geologists strongly disagreed. They argued that the erosion could be explained by a combination of natural weathering, groundwater movement, differences in limestone quality, salt crystallization, and thousands of years of restoration work. They pointed out that limestone erodes unevenly depending on its composition, and that the Giza Plateau contains multiple rock layers with different resistance to weathering. In their view, there is no compelling evidence requiring the Sphinx to be thousands of years older than the surrounding pyramid complex. This disagreement has continued for decades because both sides are examining the same monument, but interpreting the evidence differently. One group emphasizes geological observations, while the other focuses on archaeological context. Neither side has uncovered a single piece of evidence that completely settles the question. No inscription has been found naming an earlier civilization, and no excavation has produced artifacts proving the Sphinx existed thousands of years before Khafre. Likewise, critics of the traditional timeline argue that geology deserves greater consideration than it has sometimes received. This is where the story became especially interesting in the age of artificial intelligence. When people asked Grok AI about the Sphinx's origins, the system did not invent a hidden civilization or declare that history was wrong. Instead, it summarized the existing debate. It recognized that the majority of archaeological evidence still supports the Fourth Dynasty and Pharaoh Khafre. At the same time, it acknowledged that the rainfall erosion hypothesis remains one of the most discussed alternative theories in the academic literature. In other words, the AI reflected the ongoing disagreement rather than pretending it had solved it. Some internet posts exaggerated this balanced assessment into sensational headlines claiming that Grok proved the Sphinx is 10,000 years old or that AI exposed a lost civilization. Those claims are not supported by verified archaeological discoveries. AI can evaluate published research, compare competing arguments, and identify patterns within existing information, but it cannot replace excavation, carbon dating, geological sampling, or peer-reviewed scientific investigation. Any conclusion it reaches is only as reliable as the evidence it has been given. Yet the geological mystery continues to fascinate researchers because it raises a profound possibility. What if future discoveries reveal that the Sphinx has a more complex history than anyone currently realizes? Could it have been modified, repaired, or even recarved during different periods of Egyptian history? Some scholars have explored these possibilities, although none has been confirmed by definitive evidence. The monument has endured thousands of years of erosion, restoration, and human activity, making its full story incredibly difficult to reconstruct. Perhaps the greatest lesson from this debate is that science rarely advances through certainty alone. New technologies, improved surveying methods, and more detailed geological analysis continue to refine our understanding of ancient monuments. Every new study adds another piece to the puzzle, even if it doesn't produce a final answer. In the next part, we'll explore exactly what Grok AI concluded after comparing all of this evidence, and why its response was far more cautious, balanced, and surprising than the sensational headlines suggested. When headlines began spreading across social media claiming that Grok AI solved the Sphinx mystery, many people imagined the artificial intelligence had uncovered a secret hidden beneath the sands of Giza. Some even believed it had identified a forgotten civilization or exposed a conspiracy that historians had ignored for centuries. But when you look beyond the sensational headlines, the real story is far more interesting and far more grounded in evidence. Unlike a human researcher who might specialize in a single field, an AI can rapidly compare thousands of pages of published material from archaeology, geology, climatology, astronomy, and history. It doesn't conduct excavations or make discoveries in the field. Instead, it searches for patterns across existing information. When Grok was asked who built the Sphinx, it reportedly analyzed arguments from both mainstream Egyptology and alternative researchers before weighing which explanation was best supported by the available evidence. Its conclusion surprised many people because it wasn't the dramatic answer they expected. Rather than declaring that a lost civilization built the Sphinx or claiming that historians had been completely wrong, Grok reportedly identified Pharaoh Khafre as the most likely builder based on the current archaeological record. It pointed to the monument's location within Khafre's pyramid complex, the engineering relationship between nearby temples, and the broader context of 4th Dynasty construction. These remain the strongest lines of evidence recognized by most professional Egyptologists. At the same time, the AI did not ignore the unresolved questions. It acknowledged that the geological debate surrounding the Sphinx's erosion continues to generate discussion among researchers. Instead of dismissing alternative theories outright, it recognized that certain observations deserve further investigation. This balanced approach is one reason many people found its response so compelling. It wasn't defending a predetermined position. It was comparing evidence and identifying where confidence was high and where uncertainty still existed. One of the most valuable aspects of artificial intelligence is its ability to distinguish between evidence and speculation. During its analysis, Grok reportedly treated peer-reviewed archaeological studies, excavation reports, and geological surveys as stronger sources than unsupported internet claims or sensational stories. As a result, extraordinary theories lacking physical evidence received much lower confidence than explanations supported by decades of documented research. This reflects a fundamental principle of both science and AI reasoning. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Another interesting observation was how the AI handled uncertainty. Humans often feel uncomfortable saying, "We don't know." Artificial intelligence, however, can assign different confidence levels to competing explanations. Instead of presenting history as absolutely certain, it recognized that some conclusions are supported by stronger evidence than others. This doesn't weaken the scientific process. It strengthens it. Science advances by acknowledging unanswered questions rather than pretending every mystery has already been solved. Perhaps the biggest misconception came from people confusing an AI's analysis with a scientific discovery. If an AI concludes that one theory appears more convincing than another, it has not created new evidence. It has simply evaluated information that already exists. A genuine breakthrough would require archaeologists to uncover new inscriptions, perform fresh excavations, recover datable artifacts, or discover physical evidence that changes what historians know today. Until then, any AI can only reason from the same body of published knowledge available to researchers. Ironically, Grok's most important contribution may not have been its answer at all. It was the questions it encouraged people to ask. Why are some mysteries still unresolved after centuries of research? Which pieces of evidence are strongest and which remain controversial? How can new technologies help scientists revisit ancient problems with fresh perspectives? These are the kind of questions that drive real scientific progress. In many ways, the Sphinx itself represents the perfect challenge for artificial intelligence. It combines archaeology, engineering, geology, astronomy, history, and climate science into a single monument that has fascinated humanity for thousands of years. Every new laser scan, geological survey, and digital reconstruction adds another layer of information that future researchers and future AI systems will be able to analyze even more thoroughly. But despite all this technology, one truth remains unchanged. The Great Sphinx has not yet revealed every secret it holds. Whether it was carved solely during Khafre's reign, or whether future discoveries reshape parts of its story, the monument continues to remind us that history is rarely as simple as a single headline. As remarkable as artificial intelligence has become, it still depends on one thing above all else: evidence. No matter how advanced an AI system is, it cannot invent missing history or recover facts that have been lost for thousands of years. If archaeologists haven't uncovered an inscription, an artifact, or a datable object, the AI can't magically produce one. What it can do is help researchers analyze an enormous amount of information faster than ever before, and that may change archaeology in ways we're only beginning to understand. Today, AI is already being used in scientific research around the world. Machine learning systems can process satellite imagery to locate buried structures hidden beneath sand or vegetation. They can compare thousands of excavation records in minutes, identify subtle patterns in ancient architecture, and even help restore damaged inscriptions by predicting missing symbols based on known writing styles. These are practical tools that assist archaeologists, not replacements for them. The Sphinx is an ideal candidate for this kind of analysis because it has been studied from nearly every scientific angle imaginable. Over the years, researchers have collected laser scans accurate to fractions of millimeter, high-resolution aerial photographs, geological surveys, seismic measurements, and three-dimensional digital models. Individually, each dataset tells only part of the story, but together, they create an enormous body of information that AI can organize, compare, and interpret far more quickly than a human team working alone. Imagine combining every published excavation report, every geological survey, every climate reconstruction, and every engineering analysis into a single searchable system. An AI could instantly identify where different researchers agree, where they disagree, and which unanswered questions deserve further investigation. It could reveal overlooked relationships between studies published decades apart or highlight inconsistencies that warrant another look. That doesn't mean the AI has solved the mystery. It means it has become a powerful research assistant capable of accelerating scientific discovery. One particularly exciting area involves remote sensing technology. Ground-penetrating radar, electrical resistivity surveys, and advanced imaging techniques continue to improve each year. These methods allow scientists to investigate what lies beneath the surface without disturbing the monument itself. If future surveys identify unusual underground structures, archaeologists could use that information to plan targeted investigations while minimizing damage to the ancient site. AI may help interpret these complex datasets, but any extraordinary claim would still require careful excavation and independent verification. This cautious approach is exactly what separates science from speculation. Throughout history, countless sensational claims have surrounded the Sphinx. Hidden libraries, secret tunnels, lost civilizations, and mysterious chambers have all captured the public imagination. Some ideas have inspired genuine research, while others have faded after failing to produce convincing evidence. Responsible archaeology doesn't reject new ideas, but it does require those ideas to withstand careful testing. Artificial intelligence fits naturally into that scientific process. It doesn't replace evidence. It helps organize it. It doesn't rewrite history. It evaluates competing explanations based on what is currently known. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that uncertainty is not a weakness. Some mysteries remain unsolved simply because humanity has not yet uncovered enough information to answer them with confidence. There is also a deeper lesson hidden within the story of the Sphinx. Every generation has interpreted this monument through the lens of its own technology. Ancient Egyptians viewed it as a sacred guardian. 19th century explorers saw it as a symbol of a lost past waiting to be uncovered. 20th century archaeologists applied modern excavation techniques to understand its origins. Now, in the 21st century, artificial intelligence has become the newest tool helping us ask better questions. Yet despite all these advances, the Great Sphinx continues to keep many of its secrets. It has witnessed the rise and fall of kingdoms, survived changing climates, and outlasted countless civilizations. Whether future discoveries confirm the traditional timeline or reveal unexpected chapters in its history, one fact is certain: the search for answers is far from over. In the final chapter, we'll bring together everything we've learned, from archaeology and geology to artificial intelligence, and explore why the true significance of the Sphinx may be even greater than the mystery of who built it. After examining the archaeological evidence, the geological debate, and the role of artificial intelligence, one thing becomes clear. The greatest mystery of the Great Sphinx is not that we have no answers. It's that, after more than 4,000 years, we still don't have all the answers. Every generation has believed it was closer than the last, yet the monument continues to challenge our understanding in unexpected ways. If Grok AI taught us anything, it wasn't that history is wrong. It was that history is built on evidence, and evidence is constantly evolving. When the AI reviewed the available research, it didn't reveal a hidden civilization or expose a forgotten king. Instead, it reached the same conclusion that many careful historians have reached for years, based on the evidence available today. Pharaoh Khafre remains the most likely builder of the Great Sphinx. At the same time, it acknowledged that some geological observations and unanswered questions continue to inspire legitimate scientific discussion. That balanced conclusion may not sound as exciting as a sensational headline spreading across social media, but in many ways, it is far more powerful. Real science rarely offers dramatic plot twists overnight. It advances one discovery at a time: a new excavation, a newly translated inscription, a more precise geological survey, a better scanning technique. Every genuine breakthrough adds another small piece to a puzzle that has taken centuries to assemble. Artificial intelligence is now becoming part of that process. It can organize information on a scale no individual researcher ever could. It can compare thousands of documents in seconds, identify overlooked connections, and help scientists decide where to focus future investigations. But AI cannot replace the work of archaeologists standing beneath the Egyptian sun, carefully brushing sand away from fragile artifacts or examining the stone grain by grain. The future of archaeology will likely belong to a partnership between human expertise and intelligent technology, not one replacing the other. The Great Sphinx itself reminds us why this partnership matters. For thousands of years, it has survived changing civilizations, harsh desert winds, and countless attempts to explain its origin. Every generation has projected its own beliefs onto the monument. Some saw a royal guardian. Others imagined a forgotten civilization.